A cowboy named Jake Mitchell thought he'd found paradise when he bought a remote ranch in Arizona for half its market value. But as he stepped out of his dusty pickup truck and saw 3 Apache women standing on his porch with their arms crossed, he realized the previous owner had forgotten to mention one crucial detail. The eldest woman, her silver hair braided with turquoise beads, stepped forward. Her weathered hands gripped a wooden staff, and her dark eyes held decades of stories Jake couldn't begin to imagine. "You the new owner?" Her voice carried the weight of mountains. Jake tipped his worn Stetson, trying to maintain his composure despite the unexpected welcoming committee. "Yes, ma'am, Jake Mitchell. Just signed the papers yesterday in Phoenix." The woman in the middle, probably in her 40s with calloused hands that spoke of hard work, let out a bitter laugh. Papers. White man's papers on Apache land. The youngest, barely 20 with fierce eyes that reminded Jake of a hawk, spoke in rapid Apache to the others. Whatever she said made the eldest woman's expression harden. "I'm Maria Yazzie," the elder said. "This is my daughter Carmen and my granddaughter Ayana. We've been caring for this land since before your grandfather was born." Jake felt sweat beading on his forehead, and it wasn't from the Arizona heat. "Look, I bought this place fair and square. I've got the deed right here in my truck." "Fair and square," Carmen repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Like everything else your people have taken from us." The tension hung in the desert air like smoke from a wildfire. Jake had saved every penny for 3 years to buy this ranch, dreaming of raising cattle and living the simple life his father had always talked about. Now he was standing in what felt like a courtroom where he was already guilty. "I didn't know," Jake said quietly. "The seller never mentioned anyone was living here." "Because to him we don't exist," Ayana snapped, "just like the sacred burial ground you parked your truck on." Jake's eyes widened as he looked down at the ground beneath his boots. The earth seemed different now, heavier somehow. He quickly stepped aside, his heart pounding. "Sacred burial ground," he whispered. Maria nodded slowly. "My ancestors rest here. My husband rests here. This isn't just land, cowboy. This is our home, our history, our soul." The weight of the situation crashed down on Jake like a collapsing barn. He'd spent his life savings on a dream that was built on someone else's nightmare. His hands trembled as he reached for his truck keys. I need to think about this," he stammered. "Think fast," Carmen said, "because we're not going anywhere." As Jake drove away, dust clouds following his truck like ghosts, he couldn't shake the image of Maria's eyes. They held pain, yes, but also something else. Hope, maybe. Or perhaps a challenge. That night in his motel room in the nearest town, 40 miles away, Jake stared at the deed until the words blurred together. He'd always prided himself on being an honest man, but now he wondered if honesty was enough. His phone buzzed with a text from his brother back in Texas, asking how the new ranch was treating him. Jake stared at the screen for 10 minutes before turning the phone off without responding. The next morning, Jake found himself driving back to the ranch before sunrise. He told himself he was just going to collect his things and figure out his next move, but deep down, he knew there was more to it. Something about Maria's words had burrowed into his conscience like a splinter. When he arrived, smoke was rising from behind the old farmhouse. Following the scent of burning sage and something that smelled like coffee, he found the 3 women sitting around a small fire. They looked up as he approached, their expressions unreadable. "Couldn't stay away?" Ayana asked, but her tone was less hostile than the day before. Jake removed his hat and held it against his chest. "I've been thinking all night about what you said, about this being your home." "And," Carmen prompted, "and I realize I don't know the first thing about this land or its history. Maybe you could teach me." The 3 women exchanged glances. Maria poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks dancing into the morning air. "You want to learn?" she asked finally. "I want to understand. I want to do right by this place, by your family. I don't know how yet, but I want to try." Maria studied his face for a long moment. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a flat rock near the fire. As Jake settled down, Carmen poured coffee from a battered pot into a tin cup and handed it to him. The coffee was strong and bitter, but it warmed something inside him that had been cold since yesterday. "My great-great-grandmother was born on this land," Maria began. She watched the soldiers come, watched them take our children to schools where they weren't allowed to speak our language. She watched the government draw lines on maps and call our sacred places by new names. Jake sipped his coffee and listened, really listened, for the first time in years. But she also taught us that the land remembers everything, every footstep, every tear, every prayer. It remembers the good and the bad, and it waits. Waits for what? Jake asked. For someone to listen, Ayana said softly. For someone to care. Over the next several hours, the women shared stories that textbooks had never taught Jake. They showed him the burial ground, explaining the significance of each marked and unmarked grave. They walked him through the natural springs that had sustained their people for generations, and pointed out the plants their ancestors had used for medicine and food. The man who sold you this place, Carmen said, as they stood near a grove of ancient cottonwoods. His family bought it from the government in 1922, paid $50 for 500 acres of stolen land. And now I paid him $200,000 for the same stolen land, Jake said, the irony not lost on him. The land doesn't care about money, Maria said. It cares about respect. As the sun reached its peak, Jake found himself at a crossroads that had nothing to do with the dirt paths crisscrossing the property. He could walk away, try to get his money back, and pretend this conversation never happened. Or he could stay and figure out how to make things right. What if we shared it? He heard himself saying. The three women stopped walking and turned to stare at him. Shared it how? Carmen asked suspiciously. Jake's mind raced, trying to form an idea that had been brewing since dawn. What if this place became something bigger than just a ranch? What if it became a place where people could learn about Apache history and culture, where your stories could be preserved and shared? You mean like a museum? Ayana asked, her voice skeptical. No, not a museum. Museums are for dead things. I mean a living place. A working ranch that also honors the land's true history. You could teach visitors about traditional Apache ways, about the plants and the stories and the ceremonies that are appropriate to share. Maria sat down heavily on a fallen log, her staff across her knees. And what would you get out of this arrangement, Cowboy? Jake sat down across from her, his hat in his hands. I'd get to learn from the best teachers I could ask for. I'd get to be part of something meaningful, instead of just another guy trying to make money off the land. And the profits? Carmen asked. Split 4 ways, equal partners. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. A red-tailed hawk circled overhead, its cry echoing across the desert. You're serious, Maria said finally. It wasn't a question. Dead serious. I've got enough money left to fix up the buildings and get the necessary permits. I know ranching, and I'm willing to learn everything else. Ayana looked at her grandmother and mother, then back at Jake. What makes you think tourists would want to come to the middle of nowhere to learn about Apache culture? Jake smiled for the first time since arriving, because people are hungry for real stories. They're tired of fake experiences and sanitized history. They want to touch something authentic, something that matters. And if it doesn't work, Carmen asked, then we'll have tried something worth trying, and at least the land will be cared for by people who understand its value. Maria stood up slowly, her joints creaking like old leather. She walked to the edge of the grove and placed her hand on the bark of the largest cottonwood. The tree was massive, its trunk scarred by lightning and time, but still standing strong. This tree has been here for over 200 years, she said without turning around. It's survived drought, fire, and everything humans have thrown at it. You know why? Why? Jake asked. Because it learned to bend without breaking, because it put down roots so deep that nothing could move it. She turned to face him, and Jake saw something new in her eyes. Not trust, not yet, but possibility. We'll need legal papers, she said, real ones, not the kind that can be ignored when convenient. Absolutely, Jake agreed, and we maintain our living quarters. This is still our home, of course. And any decisions about the land, about what we share and what we keep private, we make together. Agreed. Carmen stepped forward. And if you ever try to push us out, or go back on your word, you'll make me regret it in ways I can't imagine, Jake finished. I get it, and I wouldn't blame you. Ayana surprised everyone by laughing. I think I like this cowboy, grandmother. Maria walked back to the group, her expression thoughtful. There's one more thing, Jake Mitchell. If we do this, if we really do this, you need to understand that you're not just buying into a business partnership. You're becoming part of a family, an Apache family. That means responsibilities you've never had before. Jake felt something shift inside his chest, like a door opening that he hadn't even known was closed. What kind of responsibilities? The responsibility to protect this land and its stories. The responsibility to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. The responsibility to honor the ancestors who came before and think about the children who will come after. Jake looked around at the three women who had turned his world upside down in less than 24 hours. Yesterday he'd been a cowboy with a simple dream. Today he was being offered something he'd never dared to imagine, a chance to be part of something bigger than himself. "I understand," he said, "and I accept." Maria extended her weathered hand. "Then welcome to the family, cowboy." As Jake shook her hand, he felt the calluses and scars that told the story of a life lived close to the earth. Carmen and Ayana stepped forward, and soon all four of them were standing in a circle, hands joined under the ancient cottonwood. "So what do we do first?" Jake asked. "First," Maria said with a smile that transformed her entire face, "you help us prepare for the ceremony to properly introduce you to the ancestors. They need to know you're here with permission now. And after that?" "After that," Carmen said, "we start building something that's never existed before, a place where two worlds can meet with respect." "It won't be easy," Ayana warned. "There will be people on both sides who won't understand what we're trying to do." Jake nodded. "The best things never are easy." As the sun began to set over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that seemed to set the mountains on fire, Jake realized that he'd found something far more valuable than the quiet ranch he'd thought he was buying. He'd found a purpose, a family, and a chance to help heal wounds that had been bleeding for generations. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with legal hurdles, cultural sensitivities, and the delicate work of building trust between communities that had been at odds for over a century. But as he looked at the three strong women who had decided to take a chance on him, Jake felt ready for whatever came next. The land remembered everything Maria had said. Now it would remember this moment too. The day a cowboy and three Apache women decided to write a new chapter in an old story, one built on respect, partnership, and the radical idea that healing was possible. If you found this story as compelling as we did, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think Jake and the women should name their new venture. And don't forget to smash that like button to help us reach more people with stories that matter. Your support means everything to us, and we can't wait to share more incredible tales with you.